My name is Jim, and I've been at Grace for almost 40 years with my entire family, my wife and my kids. We've been there since the very beginning when Grace had not yet fully formed, but was just a Bible study that we were all attending. So when we first got to Grace, Pastor Wayne Hill was teaching a community Bible study. And we started attending the community Bible study, and then Grace Fellowship Chapel formed out of a group from there. And we began to attend Grace at Sandy Mount Elementary School. Was the first place that formally was holding the services. Well, the reason that we've stayed at Grace for all of these years is because Grace felt like home. It was very different from other churches we'd attended. The people were more open. They were willing to admit that they weren't perfect, and that was really important to us to see genuine Christianity lived out. And also, we've seen the lives of people changed. We've been able to witness that firsthand. And then really, one of the most important things is just the way the people of Grace have been living out their faith through generosity, through giving, through just relationships. It's a genuine place, and we just love it. One of the biggest examples of this was when we had first gotten married. We bought a townhouse in Taneytown, and we had lived there for almost 11 years. And we had 3 children, and we were ready to move into someplace a little larger for our family. And in the process of that, a lot of things happened. We had planned on building a new home in Reisterstown. We had sold our home, put it on the market in Taneytown, had a nice solid job, and everything was moving along great. And then as we began this process, in a period of about a month, I lost my job, and the contract on the house in Taneytown fell through, and we had just settled on the house in Reisterstown. So we went from a totally comfortable situation to one where we had no income and 2 mortgages. And that was overwhelming. We were open with the people from Grace, shared our struggle, shared our challenge, and the congregation stepped up like nothing we could have ever imagined. It happened in September. We had enough in savings to handle October just fine. November was going to be rough. One of the people from the congregation showed up at our door one day and just handed me an envelope, and it had enough money to make those 2 mortgage payments. And so we were good for November, and more food started showing up. And so we had an amazing Thanksgiving dinner, even though we had no income. And it continued on from there. We got into December, and we were obviously worried with 3 children that Christmas was going to be pretty grim. And it was going to be hard to explain to them why they weren't able to get any presents. One of the people from Grace owned a local sporting goods store, and he called me up one day and said, "Hey, can you meet me at the store?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I went over, and he walked me around the store, and he started grabbing stuff and throwing it into a bag for us. There were footballs, there were baseball gloves, bats, everything you can imagine that little boys would like. And at the end, he just handed it to me, and he said, "Make sure the boys have a good Christmas." And again, it overwhelmed me with the generosity. He didn't need to do that. He wasn't asked to do it, but he was living out Christ in the way he treated the things that he owned in his store. We would find 2 or 3 or 4 grocery bags on our porch, just left there. We had no idea who left them. We just knew it was somebody from Grace. There was so much food, we started to worry about it spoiling. And so we started calling people between Christmas and New Year's and said, "Hey, do you think you guys might be able to come over and help us eat up some of this food that you've given us?" And we had more than 60 people from Grace show up for a New Year's Eve party. And we all celebrated the goodness of God and what He had done through the people of Grace. We continued the tradition for 10 years until we left the house in Reisterstown, just so that we could continue to share the story of that incredible generosity and how good God was through the people of Grace. Well, there was such an impact of everything that God had done through the people of Grace at that time for us, that it really spurred us on to help others within the church. And so there have been many times where we have seen young families struggling financially, and we took the same model as those that reached out to us, anonymously made sure that they had what they needed to get through. So when I think about the generosity of the gospel and God's willingness to step into our place, step into our pain, step into our sin, and save us through Jesus Christ, it has been a model for our lives and the way that we interact with others. The only story that we have to tell is our personal story. And when we share what God has done in our lives, we've seen it impact so many. That God has brought us through some very difficult times, through some difficult places. I wanted to have the appearance of having everything together. And as soon as God took me to a place where I could no longer have that appearance, then He began to truly work in my heart to change the way I looked at others. And so we have consistently tried to minister through the things that God has done to minister to us.